Good afternoon, this is Oxinity Channel on Education. In previous talks we've discussed largely how to make a good activity and what it is to have good material, what it entails. And today we're going to go further and see how an activity is actually performed in class, how we bring into life our material. We're here with Rob Wylie, Graeme. We also have Georgina. Hi, Georgina.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And Pablo and Paul as well. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Radmila Gurkova, so let's get started with a little bit of preparation. So when you guys prepare for a class, what does that process entail? Because, well, of course you have series of activities, but it's how do you prepare? How do you make yourself ready?
I mean, first of all, I familiarize myself with the material, so I knew before I go in the class, okay, I'm going to do this, we're going to talk about this, I'm going to cover third conditional, phrasal verbs and vocabulary about this. So I make sure that I'm completely familiar, prepare a little bit extra just in case, you know, sometimes you expect a student may not get it and they get it like that, and you need to have, backup as well. So I make sure I'm comfortable with the material, and I know exactly kind of the order that I'm gonna.
Do you prepare every single activity, or you kind of select beforehand?
I mean, when I know the students, because certain topics, maybe you get a topic activity, you think actually this topic's not going to interest that student, so that's when you kind of know the students. But I certainly prepare more than what I expect to do in the class, right? So if I expect to do 4 activities in an hour, I'll prepare 6 activities and make sure I've got 6.
Okay.
Which is basically more or less all of them, 6, 7 activities.
Yeah, I tend to like. I look at the vocabulary activities, or if it's pronunciation, and I kind of view it to these are things I need to check off.
Yeah.
The things I want to get through as quickly as possible, see what they know, and try and establish that in a conversation. But for me, the key is what's in the grammar activity, because I want to look and go, all right, I need to show this, whether I'm doing it in a natural way or using the activity, and then I want to see if there's any way that I can encourage them to a bit more freer practice of that form in the topic if I can. That's what I do. I'm looking at going, how can I glue it and make it flow?
Yeah, well, that's where you have to work on the links, right, between activities. I think that's something important, and we should all be doing, just for this, having a smooth class. I tend to start with the top grammar structures as well, especially if it's a long kind of an hour and a half, 2-hour class. Get the nitty gritty stuff out of the way at the beginning, and then sort of maybe the last one have a bit of a topic, a little bit more relaxed.
And I think one of the things that I really like to do is especially when you know your student, is to like go, okay, where does this grammar structure exist for them in their reality? Yeah. Because that's my biggest challenge. Whenever I'm teaching someone, is going, okay, I've got an activity where it's somewhere, but where is that for you?
Yeah.
And that's what I spend most of my time thinking about when I'm teaching.
Yeah, okay. And using the grammar that you've studied maybe at the start of the class, you can then apply that when doing the discussion about a certain topic, So if you've covered conditionals, the example again, when you've done the text, maybe later on in the class, you can start asking for more examples using the conditional that you've just studied, using in the topic activity.
Great, fantastic. How about you guys? Georgina, what about you?
Well, I think I do the same as the guys, but what I try to do before I get into a class is become very familiar with the material, very familiar with the students I have, and then I try to activate a schemata. I just, search for what they know, and when I step into the class, I just prepare games or questions or anything engaging to warm up a little and activate what they already know, so that the transition between what they know to what they don't know is smooth, really. And I do it through topics. So even if it is a grammar class, I activate a topic, the topic that's going to be the content for the grammar to have. And so that is what I do. It's a lead-in activity, really. It's a warm-up, maybe becoming familiar, relax, leading topic activity that will eventually lead me to learn and guess the rules for the grammar or the vocabulary.
Excellent. Paul, in your case, I've seen you prepare literally in 1 minute, and yet the class is amazing. So how do you do that?
Natural.
I'm just talented. What can I do? What I try to do, I will try to put when I do so I start with the grammar as the other guys have said. Start with the grammar, and I try to put the grammar. I would learn.
Yeah.
And I guess working with Oxinity is that the material is you literally can come into the class not having looked at the material and then just go with it, and it's that easy. But obviously that's not what you want to do, but it's possible to do that. But I like to like I say, with the grammar, I try to apply that actually in the topic, so to make sure that it's covered.
Just want to say that it's not that Paul doesn't prepare. It's just that sometimes we literally throw him in the deep end and tell him, Paul, there's a class, can you cover it? And he always says yes. And I don't know how he does it, but it looks like he's been preparing for it for hours. So yeah.
I mean, I guess a lot of it, like Paul was mentioning, then I think because we've got the material, and I think because it's created by us, it makes it super teacher friendly and really easy to use. And that's what I say a lot of times in kind of interviews when I'm explaining a little bit about it. So it's super easy because it's created by teachers, Yeah.
So therefore, they've thought about what would the teacher need and present it in one way or another.
The teacher notes help you out so much. I mean, that's what I always look at, what the teacher notes are, and then I look at what the actual syllabus that the teacher is taking inspiration from, and I look at both, and I go, somewhere in between that is where I'm going to be and how I'm going to use it, and it's dead easy. You literally can prepare yourself in minutes for a class. It's great.
Mm-hmm. In any case, activities are just guides, but you are the ones that make them meaningful, and it's interesting that different teachers do different interpretations of the same activity. So, okay, how does that happen? How do you make it? How do you bring them to reality, to life? That's it.
I guess by adding a bit of personal. But you can give if you talk, I don't know, the topic, whatever it may be, you can kind of give your opinion on something, get involved a little bit, or maybe you're talking about a place. I went there, and I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Add a little bit of a personal touch. That's what I was looking for.
And there's so many different ways you can every student wants to learn in a different way. So there's sometimes if we look at methodology and PPP for a second, if you just the PPP model, you can start with the production. You can start by going, here, let's get into it, and then you can then lead them and see what they work out, and see if they can do it, and then you've got the first two stages of that model to then reinforce what they know, and that you can move them about on our site. You can start any way you want. Having those activities laid out the way we are just frees you to do whatever you want. It's just a template,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I agree.
And Pablo, can you hear us?
I'm here. I've been punished today.
You've been punished today. But you have quite interesting stories to share, right?
Yeah, evidently teaching has changed a lot throughout the years, and the traditional teaching that we had when we were kids is not the same as it is today. For example, to me, it's a very personal technique. I'm very dynamic in my classes, and of course, teachers need to know their students. Teachers need to know what their needs are and how to approach students in every single class. Every class is different, absolutely, and you need to focus on students' needs. That's to me my main concern. Now, classes, yes, they need to be prepared beforehand before you walk into the class, so you have the time to organize all the topics the way you want them to be presented, and the class just flows beautifully. Sometimes you do not have to follow the rules by the book, because like I said before, every class is different and new things can come up during the class, and you'll be amazed how students really enjoy the class when you do not follow the rules by the book. At least that, and it works for me beautiful. And when it comes to target language, oh, I love that part.
Why do you love it so much?
Good.
Okay.
Fabulous answer.
Pablo, she said, why do you love it so much, mate?
Why?
Why?
Why do I what?
Why do
Why
you
do you
love
love
it?
it so much?
The target language.
Why do I love it? What, teaching? Oh, target language. Oh man, it would take me 2 hours to explain it. But for example, I always look at my target language in a way so I can try to make a story with every single word that we have, and students just flip, say, "Wow, how did you do that?" For example, let's see. I will tell one of my students, if you have an affair with a woman across the street and your spouse knows you are having an affair, she's going to cut your head off and she's going to be sent to prison for murder because you were an unfaithful husband. How's that?
What was a
I
target
said,
language?
wow, we covered like 5 different words.
Yeah, target language is an affair, spouse, what else is target language there? Cut off.
Yeah.
I've not seen this activity. I want to do this
I
activity.
think Bransby did it.
I love when it comes to target language, I love them because I can make stories easily.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the skills that is actually, or one of the things that is not in the instructions. So no one instructs you on that, and yet you do it.
Right, and then you start making funny faces, and like for example, there was one class. There was an elephant halfway in a box. So we were talking about prepositions, like in, into, and the student said the elephant is into the box. Okay, stop right there. What about and and I hit myself under the table and I say, okay, where's the elephant now? So trying to tell the students between the difference between in and into. Into is more related to a progressive action. The elephant is getting into the box.
Yeah.
Now, once the elephant is fully inside the box, you can say the elephant is in the box.
You cannot forget this lesson
No.
for sure.
No.
Once someone explains it to you,
I'm learning so much. I'm learning.
And then it comes the word under. And I just get myself under the table and I said, and I asked the students, where is the teacher? The teacher is under the table. Okay, excellent. I believe a lot in acting, so to speak, when you teach, and not being the traditional old-fashioned teacher.
Yeah.
Because that's boring.
Yeah.
People do not like
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
No, yeah.
Movement, lots of movement. People remember that.
Yeah.
Moving around a lot. People remember that.
Right.
Getting
But
under the table, the student will remember that because it's strange and a little bit weird, a little bit quirky. So to get under the table, like the student will remember. But just writing it down. It's going to be quite difficult for them to remember. So.
My favorite teacher was geography teacher, and he was in school, and we've always talked about kind of, if you remember, teachers, and he was one, he would do crazy stuff like that, like jump on tables. We were talking about earthquakes or whatever, so we'd all go into the table and he'd jump on the table. Probably quite dangerous actually. He'd jump on the table and do lots of actions, and he was a bit mad, but he was the best teacher.
You loved him.
Loved him, and still remember him to this day.
I think that's one of the things is when there's stuff in the textbook or it's on a laptop, but if you're sitting in an environment and you can apply whatever's there to it, You know, I mean, personally, I'd love to be a bystander in a coffee shop when you start getting under the table. What are they doing? But you know, I've heard you talk about, Pablo, you'll make comments on people coming in and out of the restaurant and apply the target language or the grammar to them.
Exactly. I have a class here, Café da Mix, which is about 100 yards from here. And I love teaching that class because my student, he needs a lot of graphic information.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he picks it up right quickly. And when you look outside the glass of that coffee shop, there are tons of examples to give.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, using your surroundings is really good. Really good thing.
Absolutely.
Using your surroundings is great, and that's what you got to do. But what Pablo said about the target language, I agree. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I get a word that the student doesn't know, and I teach that word, I get a little bit of a kick out of this. Like it's quite like, oh, what does it mean? It means this. Oh, does it mean that? Oh, okay. And then it's just like, I don't know. That's the enjoyment of my job, isn't it? So teaching words. I just get a little bit of a kick out of it personally.
And how do you find, like, I was talking to Georgina this morning and like talking about the inductive way of teaching, like instead of just always teaching them and giving them stuff, is like giving them that opportunity to meet you halfway, because that's my biggest kick when I teach. If like I'm kind of leading them down the garden path and then they get it themselves and I'm like, Toma, you know, I feel so good, you know. Does everyone else get that?
I know that. Exactly, you know. Yeah, completely. Silence. Moving on. Next question.
Next topic.
Next question.
When I get a student, a high level student, and they know all the material, finding words, and this is kind of where my specialty subject, knowing when to drop in a word that they won't know, and thinking of that word
on the spot
in the moment. And that's kind of like my speciality, like, and like I say, teaching them something they don't know is great. Yeah.
In any case,
silence again.
No. Well, not everything is in the text, because we're talking about how a text becomes a reality. Yeah. But you mentioned many things that are not even in the text. So what are these things that you prepare for, but you don't read the instructions for them? What are these?
I think for me personally, I would say that all you really need to do is go in as if they don't know anything, and then if they know it, then you've got. I mean, our knowledge of English, our knowledge of the language is. We're native. Most of us are native speakers, or we're qualified enough to be native. Yeah. So go in as if they don't know anything, and if they know, then you can move on, and you can, like I say, drop in a new word, watch them. Yeah, let them learn it.
I find that, like, most of the time when I'm teaching, I like to think that I actually get some genuine production of the language, but to be honest, I don't. You know, I'm always controlling the situation. So, like, I'm always looking at any activity and going, when can you use this when you're not with me? And seeing and then maybe taking a form and applying it to a different situation. And that's like the thing that's the biggest challenge for me when I'm teaching, is going, how am I going to get you to use this afterwards? Because if you don't use it after this class, it's gone.
You're going to forget. Yeah.
In any case, we firmly believe that a little bit what Paul said, I am a native speaker, or I'm qualified enough to teach English. And we do believe that everyone who speaks a language can become a teacher. So for that reason, we need good guidance, and we need good guides, which are the activities. Fair enough. But for instance, and we provide that. I mean, we all create them, and they're user-friendly, etc. But there is something such as transitions. You cannot put how to link elements, and yet you do it. And with the more experienced you are, the better your transitions, the smoother your transitions are. So what are ways of transitioning from one element to another? How do you guys do it?
I mean, it can be using some of the target language from the activity you've just done, use it for the intro into the next activity.
Right.
For me, there's a few ways. Is that sort of classic way where you can link activity to activity. You can also start off by just telling them your syllabus for the day. this is what we can cover, and you look at it smooth. I like to just go try and keep it as communicative as possible and test them. So all the way through it, I'm being really cunning and trying to work out, I'm going to make sure that they can fulfill the syllabus today. And as soon as they fail, I go, hey, you know what? I've got this activity. And I'll drag them towards that. I find that's a bit more natural in the way I like to do it. But there's so many ways to skin a cat regarding these activities. You can go anywhere you want. As long as it's smooth and it feels natural, it's good, eh?
Another thing that is not necessarily in the activity is, for instance, unexpectedly, you realize that the students lack some knowledge and you have to fill the gap. So how do you do it? Do you take your time or you just move on? What's your decision there?
I would take my time.
To explain.
Yeah, because I think that moment when a student realizes he doesn't have X or Y, word or function or grammar, that is the moment of curiosity I need to take advantage of. I can't move on. I have to take advantage of that, magical insight moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, I can't just run away with it. Fastest. I have to help them.
And
guide them.
I totally agree with you. It's like there comes that moment when you want to let them lead a little bit, but it's a fine balance, isn't it? Because sometimes you can be like, well, who's in, sometimes students want to jump up. They're in beginner class, and all of a sudden they're trying to form a question with your favorite, the second conditional, and you're like, oh, hold your horses there a little bit. We have to build up to that. But it's kind of that balance, right? Do you guys ever take them above what they should be learning to give them a little taste, or do you control the class? What do you do?
Well, you want to challenge them, right?
Okay. So you're quite happy just to let it flow and do your thing. I mean, I am. How do you guys feel?
Yeah. No, because you want to challenge them, and if they're going off in one direction and they want to push themselves, and it happens with numbers all the time, right? So you've got like an S1, a really beginner. You go, I don't know, you're doing 1 to 10. They want to know what 11 is. They want to know what 20 is, and and okay, obviously you got to have a limit, but they always want to know. Okay, well I know 20, so I can do 29. So what's 30? And I think most students do want to push themselves, and I think we need to know when to rein it in a little bit. But you gotta let them crack on.
Totally. Because sometimes, within, especially if someone wants to learn a job or they want to do something in a certain area, maybe there's grammar and vocabulary from all sorts of levels just to survive in that one area. So you have to go everywhere, don't you? They might not learn everything, but they can do this one area. That's why.
Since we're talking about texts, what is your opinion? Are long texts, or how long should texts be so that they're really helpful and not?
We have that little counter in the bottom right corner, right, where it says 150 now. It's not like Twitter or whatever, where it's strict and it prevents you from going over that. However, I think that's a good guideline.
Yeah.
I think when I see an activity with just pages and pages and pages of text, I'm just like, ugh.
I don't like text at all most of the time.
You can just put a picture, and it just has to be like, you can have just as much discussion about a topic with just a picture. What's the expression?
Yeah.
Pictures more powerful than words or something?
Yeah.
Like that. I can't remember.
A picture is worth 1,000 words.
That's the one, Jarvis. Thank you.
Pablo,
Talent.
Yeah.
what do you do?
I'm here.
Can't teach it.
What do you do when you have a long text?
Well, long tests can be very boring sometimes,
Always.
depending on the level. What I do when they start reading long tests, I stop them every now and then and try to discuss that specific part of the text. Making different questions associated with the text they just read. Because if you have the student read too much, all that they're thinking about is, when is this going to end? Yeah, and especially when there are a lot of new target words. It's difficult sometimes to handle.
Yeah.
And you're constantly, because they're reading, and guaranteed there's words in there that they're going to pronunciate wrong. It's just a negative feeling when the students just sit and read in text. because they're making tons of mistakes. All you're doing is being like, no, that's not how the ED ending goes, or that said that. And I personally find that most of my students have been reading and writing in school, and for some reason that's failed them, and that's hence why they're in a class with me. If I ever get a text, I read to them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I tend to do it depending, because I've got students who maybe I start reading, they're like, oh no, can we read? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. A lot of it depends, I kind of mix it up a little bit, but a lot of it depends on the level of the student and how difficult the text is. So if it's going to be quite a difficult text at a level, then I tend to read, so then they can follow and they focus more on trying to, following and understanding. Whereas if the text relatively easy for their level, then I'm like, okay, well, you guys can read now, and because they want to, we'll have a practice, and so yeah.
The problem I come across with text is that if they're reading, it's a receptive skill, and at the same time they're speaking out, which is a productive skill, so they're taking in zero information. And if I'm using that text as a launching point for the activate some thought, the amount of times I've got to end of a text and went, so what do you think? And they've went, I don't know, I wasn't paying any attention, I was just concentrating on pronunciation.
Yeah.
So that's why I do them the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially when you have long tests, what are you checking on? Pronunciation,
comprehension.
Comprehension, that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
So I have students who want to read twice, maybe 3 times, because they more than likely they'll be able to read through with no problem, good pronunciation and everything. Then at the end, when you ask a question regarding the text, okay, what does the text say? Can I read it again? So long text, right?
Yeah, that's why I think with long text, what we can do is prepare some questions to guide them and to read for gist, and so they approach the text with some intention, not just to read it to talk about it later. So they start reading because they've got an objective, and it is something about the global understanding of the text, but they are engaging with the text, in the text, and with you and the rest. And I think long texts are better read in silence. Because they demand a lot of comprehension, and then short texts maybe you can put it's up to students and groups.
You can put scaffolding in to so you ensure they're actually paying attention and studying what you want by presenting them with questions first, so that they're scanning for detail when they're listening, so that then by answering those questions, you now know they're now ready to have an opinion.
Exactly.
That's the key for me. If you don't have any focusing them on what they're supposed to study, then it just becomes a pronunciation exercise.
Exactly.
Right. I agree.
So basically, if we are aiming production, our texts have to be just brief ideas, so that to spark conversation and
straight to the point.
Straight to the point.
Chatting.
Which leads to the next point. So how do we deal with instructions? What should instructions be so that they work for you?
Clear, concise,
short, short and sweet.
Wonderfully
precise.
Precise.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
And we can give examples if they don't get it. You know, we can show them what we're expecting them to do.
Yeah. And the teacher knows some intention of what the creator was wanting to achieve would be good as well. Like, these are these questions. You're looking for them to maybe use cohesive devices, or we want them to sequence in this or narrate. That those sort of teacher notes. When I see them, I'm like, okay, because then I can sit back and I can really concentrate on fixing whatever issue, or encouraging it, or eliciting, a different style for them to produce language in.
Okay, great. What about improvising? Do you guys often improvise in class?
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, often.
Constantly.
But it's always based on what you have. Like the material inspires you to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Do students like it?
The material,
they love it.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
the elephant
they keep coming back from home.
Story is wow, I love it. Yeah. I am the elephant too. I'm the elephant under the table. Yeah. I'm a drama student too, so I do a lot of acting in my classes.
Amazing.
And it is very, very funny because students love the surprise element
of course.
when they don't expect it, and so improvising a little, it keeps it.
And the abstract as well, like you can bring that in as a teacher. Like when you were saying the elephant's in and the elephant's into, I'm like, is the elephant into Led Zeppelin? Is he into crochet? You can bring in the abstract version of what that is.
Phrasal verb.
Yeah, and you can always do that with stuff. You can bring in, we use this somewhere else a bit weirdly, and students love that. They're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you have any questions, Rob?
We do. We don't have questions, but we have comments. Very nice comments. So one of them, number one, is it is important to allow the students to debate ideas or subjects related to them because it allows them to pressure them to think in English and search vocabulary. So if you've got their interest. And another one, the ultimate consideration is to adapt the activities to the students' level and needs, thus readjusting approach by challenging or retracing concepts according to comprehension.
Well, it's very true. I mean, this is again something that is not necessarily in the text. So to adapt to their levels, you have to have very fast reactions to any level problems.
Especially when you've got a mixed class. Do you know? I mean, like all of these levels. There is a starting point and an end point, and it's probably 3 months of teaching. So if you get them on different parts, you do have to. There's more scaffolding is needed in each one. Whereas some ones you can just be like, what, I'm going to just test you. And there's other ones where like, I got to lead you down the garden path a lot more.
Do you remember any activity that you can consider, oh wow, this is the perfect activity, and why was it so good?
All of Paul's.
Exactly. I was just going to say.
I knew you were going to say it, so that's why I jumped in there. No, for me, I like videos. I don't think we need to use full videos. I like videos. A game, good target language, beautiful intro, wonderful wrap up, splendid. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but there's been a good one this week. There's been a couple of good ones.
One I saw about a month ago. Someone created one on dreams. And it was explaining all the different dreams and then talking about your own dreams and then applying the terms to it. And it was like, and anyone, a kid to a grandparent, could really have appreciated this. And anyone I know, I was speaking to Paul talked with it, and it was like, it was so generic and it was brilliant. You really got people talking, eh? Activities like that are so open.
How about you, Pablo? You mentioned earlier that there was a fantastic activity. What was good about it?
Oh gosh, well, there are several of them. To me, all activities are good, okay? There is not a specific one that I can tell, okay, this one is better than the other one. It all depends on how well you do in class and how well you talk to your students, get them involved with what you do. Every activity is a different activity, absolutely, and also depending on what kind of class you have, okay? For example, we had a class this week, and one of the topics was about abortion, and that's a very hot issue today, and my class were all women. So you have to be able to manage that very delicately, okay? You can hurt someone else's feelings, but it turned out to be just fine. It worked out beautiful, okay?
So
a teacher has to be at a time like a psychologist, trying to understand your student. So you have to know what words to use, what not to use, how to approach a specific topic.
I agree with that, and let's finish here with this idea of Pablo that it is eventually you, the teachers, who make the activities come to life, and you're the ones that there is no good or bad. Well, there are activities that you can prefer rather than others, but in any case, eventually it is you that make them kind of vibrate. So, well, thank you guys. That was a great talk. Very interesting, and I hope to see you all next week at 12 sharp.
Yes.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Have a nice
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Behave.